Hello.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning.
We're
How are
all
you?
back again.
We are. Yes, I was taken away last week, I'm afraid, by the roof alarms, which had gone off early in the morning, and I'd reset it, but
So
couldn't
your roofs
reset
are
it.
all secure today, are they?
Well, no, I had an email yesterday to say they'd gone off yesterday morning at 11 o'clock, but I was in church at 11 o'clock yesterday, and they certainly hadn't gone off then.
It wasn't you that set them off.
No, I wasn't on the roof. It's birds, seagulls in particular, I think, but they say not.
What, chasing seeds?
Could be chasing
Here we
seeds.
go there.
Yeah, could be chasing seeds or food. Bread of life. Let's waffle. Let's take a pause and you can read. Thank you, Chris. Chris, do read for us.
You're making the assumption that the waffle's before the pause. It could be the waffling that we do about the Bible passage that people object to.
One person did say how much they missed me last week
Oh, that's so sweet.
on the Facebook. They missed the governor. They
Was
said.
that Jane?
No, Jane never listens to too much waffle. So you're okay. To our good friend Chris. Hello, Chris. Thank you for saying you missed me. Nobody else did.
She also fell asleep mid-watch last week. She told us. She did blame the heat rather than our terribly boring commentary on John's.
Anyway, stop waffling. Chris, read on, please.
A reading from John chapter 6. So when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For it is on him that God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." So they said to him, "What sign are you going to give us then, so that we may see it and believe you? What work are you performing? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Then Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty."
We're ending up with two pauses. A before and an after.
We
I like this passage.
were seriously reflecting on what had just been read.
I like this passage. I like the fact that Jesus tackles them and says to them, "You're only chasing after me because I fed you." David sometimes dismisses some of our creative expressions of church as gimmick church. And perhaps this is the first example of gimmick church, because when Jesus fed them, that's what they thought they were going to get the next time. But he moves them swiftly on from being fed physically to being fed spiritually.
This is the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, is what you're saying.
I think it's really interesting, though, isn't it? Because a lot of the things that are well attended for our community outreach revolve around food. And actually, the whole vision I have of what church should be is about food, not just because I want to eat it, but because I think that's a really good model. It's a good metaphor for what we do when we invite people to come to church. We want them to be fed. And sometimes that's physically fed. And sometimes that's fed in different ways, like through relationships and through being able to find a place of peace and a place of welcome and being affirmed and being encouraged to know that they're loved by God. And that's all feeding us, but just in different ways.
I was just thinking, actually, it was the first part, which just seemed to be the passage of the lectionary at the moment where Jesus always seems to be running away. He feeds the 5,000 and he disappears to a quiet place and the people chase him. So he does some miracles and then he runs away to another place and they feed him. And then he runs away to another place. And it's almost like Jesus is trying to have some peace and quiet. But because Jesus is feeding people, because he's healing them, like I said, it's all going back to all these signs again, isn't it? You know, he's doing the practical stuff of meeting people's food needs, meeting people's health needs, etc. That they're chasing after the dramatic, and Jesus does it even though he's trying to get away.
Yeah.
I don't think he's particularly running away, is he? I mean, he needs to renew himself, and that's part of what I actually preached a couple of weeks ago about. I was going to advise people to do something that I'm not very good at doing, which is taking time away or going on retreat or sabbatical. I need to improve. And Jesus knew the value of being able to go away into prayer and silence and just to be with God. And I think a lot of us miss that if we're not careful. We miss what we're being, shown what to do by Jesus. And there's been a lot of boats involved in the last few weeks' stories, haven't there? Jesus has spent a lot of time crossing the lake because that's where he was centred, that area. So that the lake was very central to all that was going on. And they seem to have spent a lot of time in the boat crossing it from one place to the other. I think this need for getting away to renew ourselves spiritually, Jesus will renew us with the bread of heaven. We'll be fed spiritually as well as physically, but we also need to take some responsibility for renewing ourselves, don't we?
Well, it's interesting because he points them then to what the work of God is. And the work of God isn't feeding people. The work of God, it's part of it, isn't it? What Jesus is doing. But they say, how do we do the works of God? And he says, the work of God is that you believe. And that actually, at the heart of all these signs, the healing and the feeding and the teaching and the water into wine and all the other things that happen, the point of them is to encourage people to have faith. And actually, that's what the work of Jesus is about. And it's what the work of the church is about faith.
It is. And I think that goes back to the need sometimes to be able to retreat from daily whatever, to think about that and what it means and how we do deepen our faith and our understanding of what God means to us in our lives, and how we understand that and how we then do what Jesus asks, and that is to do the work of God himself, which is to help others to develop an understanding of what faith means for them as well.
Brings us nicely into holiday season, doesn't it? The fact that we all need to have a bit of rest and be busy in what we're doing and to recuperate and reflect on what we're doing and reflect on what we actually believe and how we're communicate it.
Absolutely.
Well, and for some people, that privilege of having extended time away is not available. But even in the everyday, is finding just a few moments to be still and restful in each day.
Yeah.
Is enough to sustain. I think we all need longer periods of that rest and refreshment. But sometimes you just can't. That isn't what's happening for you in your life at the moment, is it? So, so a few minutes every day, and then that day of Sabbath rest every week, will keep you going till you get your, your week's holiday that you've been looking forward to.
Yeah, and that day of Sabbath rest, as you quite rightly called it, Joe, is often not there anymore because we're just as busy on the Sabbath, or people are just as busy on the Sabbath as they are any other day. Because whilst they may turn up for the hour in church, they're then racing around. Shops are still open, things can be done, and I do think we've lost that that wonderful ability to just stop and wonder, haven't we? Sometimes, and to find time. Pondering that beautiful words of Mary. She pondered all these things in her heart, and that's part of knowing what. Of being with Jesus, just stopping, thinking, retreating for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, doesn't matter. You'll find that space yourself. But there is a need just to stop and to enjoy the beauty and peace and quiet that surrounds us. Because otherwise we're just racing around like idiots all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that if we take Jesus seriously in verse 29, where he says, this is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent, so that you believe in Jesus, that it's work. Faith is about, it takes work to have faith, to actually believe and to nurture that relationship with God and to pray and to read our Bibles and to just grow in that relationship of faith and to consider deep concepts of salvation and love and being worthy and all the things that we talk about all the time. You can't get your head around those things unless you spend some time pondering them, as you just said, and thinking about stuff. And I also, although I'm very good at having a sabbatical, and it was very nice, thank you very much, I find in my week, my daily routines and my weekly routines, if you're not careful, every moment is crammed until the point where you can't do anymore because you're so tired, and then you collapse in a heap in front of the telly and sort of sit there for an hour thinking, oh, I can't do anything else now, and then you go to bed. And it's just this, if you're not careful, I think there are just two speeds. There's fast and stop and nothing in between. So,
I think that's absolutely true, and that's why I say I actually said the other week I'm going to ask you to think about something I'm not very good at, and but I've got better at that in the day. I'm still not good at going off on retreat as we're meant to do by order of the bishop, and that's for one or two reasons. But I'm getting much better at finding time in the day just to say, actually, I don't need to sit in front of the computer for the next hour. I could do. It's easy enough to do that. But actually, I can use that 1 hour, better just being quiet, praying and maybe reading or whatever. But we always feel very guilty. I remember my dearly beloved training incumbent, Tony, saying to me when I first started, I'm never going to knock on your door in the middle of the afternoon to find out if you're working or not, because I expect you to take time in the day just to be quiet and to be. And I've tried to pass that on to people in the past, because I think that's true. We do need to find time, all of us, not just clergy, everybody. And that's why I feel sorry for some of these people who work such long hours, forced long hours, 12-hour shifts a day, because by the time they get home, all they're going to do is press fill their face, rush to bed and get up again to start the 12 hours again the next day. And it can't be good. And 7-day working can't be good, because no one ever gets a break. And I know there are certain professions that have to work. I was one of them when I was a nurse. You have to cover that 7 days a week, but you still get your days off at other times. And it's how you use that time then, not just to recover from the stress of all you've been doing, but also the need for, in my case, spiritual enlightenment or fulfillment in some way.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I think it's also important for people in the church to model that, because we all know this theory, but it's very easy when somebody comes to church and, oh, somebody's joined our church. Come and be treasurer. Come and be sidesman. Come and be treasurer. Come on the reading rota. Come on the intercessions rota. And very quickly, they're so busy that they're not then resting in the Lord. And if we cannot model this behaviour of not overworking in church, we're not providing a model that's different enough from, like you say, all these people that are having to work really, really hard in all their other jobs. Because these people who work really hard, when they do come to church, sometimes they just want to sit in church and enjoy the liturgy.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because our rota's reduced recently since COVID, and rightly so, because we haven't got the resources to staff it in any other way. But of course, it creates gaps. So for villages, perhaps are now down to 2 services a month instead of 4 or 3. And suddenly you have gaps. And I think I've been really pondering about this the gaps in the week. What do you do on the Sundays where the church that you normally go to doesn't have a service? And actually, that does exactly what you've just said. It gives you a rest. I don't mean a rest from church, but I mean it gives you a rest from the jobs that you would do normally on a Sunday morning, like size person or laying up the altar or being the church warden or playing the organ. And it means that you can go somebody else's church where they'll be busy doing their jobs that week, and you can just be, and you can attend and rest in God. And actually, that seems to me a really good way of sharing the workload, that not everybody is having to do everything every week. And actually, suddenly there are times when you can just go to worship at another church and be part of the congregation and not have to worry about the responsibilities that you might have in your home patch.
Mm. So the key to all this is that in whatever we're doing, whether it be still or busy, we know we're going to be fed by Jesus, because he tells us that whoever comes, he is the bread of life, and whoever comes to him is not going to be hungry or thirsty. I find that really exciting and really good, not because I'm a glutton and want to keep eating, but because it's the fact of knowing that God's always there. It's again back to the couple of weeks ago. It's Jesus showing true compassion and love for us all and care. But we've got to play our part in it, haven't we? Be ready to respond and to go to them.
Next week we get another go at it. I think next week we've got the final bit of it about what it really means to have the bread of life in our lives.
Well, that'll be a good discussion then, won't it?
Well, hopefully.
Be a good discussion. And there we are. Well, I hope that that has fed people, those dear good viewers who are watching us, and that please respond. Tell us, do you feel fed by what you get, or how could we help to feed you more? That's the great key moment in the week. How can we feed you more?
Well, how can God feed us more? I'm more interested in that than us.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very, very true. Hopefully God works through us in some way to help with that.
A gentle reminder that we are always the tool that God uses.
Thank you.
God does the work.
I was just thinking my role is I'm a serving spoon.
Yeah. Many people have called me a tool in the past, but thanks, Chris. I'll accept your interpretation of that, and I have a new meaning on it. So thank you.
Excellent. And I'm going to consider what it means to be a serving spoon or a large platter.
There is no answer to that, really.
Oh, I can't get rid of the buffet vision. That's the thing. We've been talking about the buffet as a vision for our team. So I'm just stuck in buffet mode. There we are.
There we are. Well, thank you all very much indeed. With that vision of being a buffet, and Joe being the olive spoon or something like that, or the trifle spoon, whilst Chris is just going to be the pork pies fork. I'm not quite sure. It's all good. We will see you again next week, and of course, you can catch up or watch us on
everywhere. We're just everywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Chris is on TikTok.
I'm on TikTok still.
I know. It's astounding, really. So, Beaminster Team Churches or Eggardon and Colmers Benefice. Get Googling.
Get Googling. You'll find it all.
You will.
We'll be there.
We will.
If they're already watching, they've probably already found it. So. I'm beginning to think, why bother at the end?
We're going into waffle mode. Let's go.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.